And thank you very much once again. Welcome to the Global Hunger Index. And today we are launching this index to understand where we are. Now, we've just actually had the national anthem right here. And we have wonderful, wonderful people with us, representation from the ministry, actually different ministries. Because when you talk about global hunger, it is a collaborative effort. Our theme this morning is gender justice, a pathway to climate resilience and zero hunger. And we look at the gender question, whether we can utilize gender as a vehicle to make sure that we are achieving climate resilience and zero hunger as a country, as a continent, and the world. So thank you very much for joining us right here on KTN and also our live audience. We really appreciate you being here. You look amazing and beautiful. So I'd like to quickly recognize before I invite Christian from WHH so that he can lead us into our key remarks later on. So I'd like to recognize, first of all, I'd like to recognize the Cabinet Secretary, East African Community, ASALS and Regional Development, Honorable Beatrice Ascol-Moy. Welcome, Madam. We really appreciate you being here. Kindly appreciate her for making time. Asante sana. We also have representation from different ministries, from the Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock Development, Dr. Paul Kiprono-Rono, PS Agriculture, Jonathan Mweke, PS Livestock Development. Let us appreciate the Ministry of Agriculture. Yes. Other than that, we also have the Ministry of Water, because we are talking about food security, and we don't have food without water. Water is life. We have representation by PS Irrigation, Mr. Ephantus Kimotho. Let us appreciate the Ministry of Water, Asante Sana. Then, when you talk about this issue of gender balance is about social and our structural norms. So the Ministry of Labor and Social Protection is also well represented by PS Social Protection, Mr. Joseph Mogosi Mutari. Let us appreciate the Ministry of Labor. Asante sana. Then when you talk about standard growth and health, the Ministry of Health, when you talk about nutrition, it shouldn't be left, and they are well ably represented by the Director Administration at the Ministry, Mawira Mungania. Let us appreciate the Ministry of Health. All right. And with that said also, I'd like to recognize the presence of Christian Schneiper, Country Director, WHH, and also we have Wairimu Munyinyi Wahome, Country Director, Concern Worldwide Kenya. Thank you very much for making this happen, because these two organizations with other able partners have been able to put this report together to make sure that we are being informed. So ladies and gentlemen, we're about to go to the speeches, okay? Tap your neighbor like this, tell them we are going to the speeches. Be attentive, okay? Some of us, when we are serving breakfast, we put a mountain, you know, food security, then we start dozing off. So let us be very attentive and make sure that we are having a good time. At this particular moment, ladies and gentlemen, when I invite them over to the stage, I'd like you to appreciate them. Let them feel very well, because that will help also move their agenda in terms of eradicating hunger in this country. At this particular moment, ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together and help me welcome Mr. Christian Schneiper, Country Director, WHH. Good to see you, sir. We, as young people, we do, that is called gota. All right. So the floor is yours. Enjoy your presentation.
Can you hear me? No, it's not on. Is it on? It doesn't feel like.
Is it on? We are cutting the boss's microphone. We are very powerful. Is it on?
It's coming through. Not yet.
You can use mine. This is me donating. I'm being very helpful here.
All right. All right. Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. Big pleasure to be with you, and thanks for your interest. Honorable Beatrice Ascol-Moy, thanks so much for coming and taking the time. You got a bit ambushed, but I'm very happy that you made it, and you're representing such a relevant ministry for this that you made. On behalf of the Deputy President, Honorable Kindiki, thanks so much for coming. Also, thanks so much for all representatives from the different ministries. You mentioned them. Thanks so much. As you said, it's so important to have representation from all the different ministries in the country, because the fight against hunger and against malnutrition requires the input of all of us. I think we have maybe two ladies that I also would like to mention here in particular. We are also honored by the presence of Her Excellency Ms. Chatani, being the First Lady of Mastavit, and at the same time representing also the First Ladies Association as a chairperson. And also we have Ms. Agnes Ochilo, who is the First Lady of Migori County. So thank you very much also for taking the time and coming. And of course also from Kiambu, we heard, thanks so much also for being around. And all feel welcome and feel greeted from this stage at this moment. Also from the German Embassy, thanks so much for being around and giving a speech later, Christian Friedemann. Thanks so much. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, it's an honor to stand here before you today to present the findings of the Global Hunger Index in 2024. I thank you for your interest, your time, whether you're here now in person or online and on TV. Thanks so much. For nearly 2 decades, Concern and Welthungerhilfe have published in partnership the Global Hunger Index. Since 2006, the first publication. And ever since, it has been a crucial tool in tracking global hunger trends, providing a data-driven perspective on both progress and also setbacks in the fight against malnutrition worldwide. We publish the Global Hunger Index jointly, but we reference data that is usually collected from UN organizations like FAO, UNICEF, and WFP, and also in the Kenyan case from the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics. And Noah mentioned it already. 4 key indicators are important: undernourishment, child stunting, child wasting, and child mortality. And what the Global Hunger Index does is to compile these data in an index. Between 2000 and 2015, Kenya made remarkable progress in the fight against hunger. The country's GHI, Global Hunger Index, has improved. Child stunting, wasting, and mortality has been halved within 15 years, which was remarkable. And these gains were driven by effective implementation of policies, someone said it also on the panel, joint action, investment in nutrition and poverty programs, and resilience building efforts throughout the country. However, today, despite this progress, the situation has taken a troubling turn. And that's one reason why we are also here. The earlier momentum has clearly stagnated, and undernourishment is once again on the rise. In 2016, the data shows that 20% of Kenyans were undernourished. This figure has almost doubled to today, to 35% throughout the country. And often undernourishment is the precursor of stunting, wasting, and also child mortality in the future. So we're here to understand and see what we can do about it. The report, on Friday there was a report published also by your ministry, Your Excellency, the Ministry of East Africa, ASAL, and Regional Development, through the National Drought Management Authority. And it indicates that 2.15 million people in Kenya are in urgent need of humanitarian assistance. This doubles from 1 million around July last year. The projections are that by the end of June, those figures have even increased to 2.8 million. Today, right now, 800,000 Kenyan children under 5 years require treatment for malnutrition. UNICEF estimates that only 31% of all Kenyan children between 6 and 23 months have consumed a minimal acceptable diet in terms of frequency of meals, but also the diversity of meals, only 31%.
So what is the reason? What could be the reason for this stagnation and the setbacks that we are seeing? We still have a very high level of poverty in the country. 36% of Kenyans live below the poverty line, making the struggle and the access to nutritious food a daily struggle. Notably, this is also the most reduction of the poverty reduction happened between 2000 and 2015. So it mirrors very much also the global hunger index trend. And also since 2015, the fight against poverty has also stagnated. Some reports are saying that Kenya has lost its ability to translate economic growth into poverty reduction, because we see economic growth may be happening, but is no longer translating as effectively into poverty reduction as in the past. We also must recognize that poverty and malnutrition is not only confined to the ASAL regions. The ASAL regions are hosting about 44% of the Kenyan poor, but 56% due to the population being more dense in other regions are still also outside ASAL. So the problem is not only confined to Turkana, Marsabit, Wajir, but also to Meru, to Kakamega, and even to Nairobi. The cost of essential food items have surged. The Kenyan government, I would say, had to raise tax, or as attempt to raise tax to do the investment, and yeah, the ever-growing debt crisis is also here. The food prices have increased very much in all aspects, and also the non-food essentials such as charcoal, electricity, fuel, further strain the household budgets. And we must also recognize, even when inflation stabilizes today, the high prices persist. So the purchasing power, especially of the poor households, are strained even more. Usually also because they pay or spend a much higher proportion of their income on such essential items. We all remember, of course, the drought that happened here in the region. In the entire East Africa, almost 40 million people were affected. Here in Kenya, we had 6 to 8 million people being chronically food insecure, and up to 4 to 5 million people being in need of urgent assistance during that phase. We see floods, also last year, but we also see water scarcity. Kenya is a water scarce country. The UN defines water scarcity as having 1,000 cubic meters per person per year. Kenya has 500. So 50% of what we consider globally as water scarce is available at water sources here in Kenya. More than 16 million people in Kenya rely on untreated and unsafe water sources, such as ponds, shallow wells, rivers, and lakes. Poor water quality and sanitation practices contribute to a high level of malnutrition. We also see degradation of the environment. Kenya lost about 10% of the forest cover since 2000. And we see 64% of the Kenyan land is classified as a high risk of degradation, and also biodiversity, usually due to deforestation, overgrazing, and poor farming practices. All this leads also to conflicts, another reason for high hunger levels that we see in Kenya. The Kenyan borderlands with Ethiopia, South Sudan, Somalia, and Uganda face climate shocks, resource scarcity, socio-political tensions, creating a cycle of fragility and recurring humanitarian crisis. Often those conflicts are, the source of those conflicts are the access to water and land, and also the drought has had an impact here with the population in the north, the pastoralist communities, losing between 50 to 75% of their livestock. You can imagine what that means for a poor household in the north. We have organizations, or how do we call it, terror organizations like Al-Shabaab and other non-state armed groups that exploit the situation of climate-induced emergencies to recruit from vulnerable communities. We have food systems in Kenya that are relying on rain-fed agriculture. Only 18% of Kenya receives sufficient rainfall. The rest would need substantial investments into irrigation systems. Out of the 6.3 million farming households that that we have in Kenya, 4.8 are on subsistence farming. And also the age of the farmers are growing to 50 to 60. The majority of farmers is 50 to 65 years old. We see not strong enough producer organizations that are not able to represent farmers along the value chains and negotiate for good prices. We see post-harvest losses, I think that was also mentioned here, of 30 to 40%. Often an equivalent of 1 month of consumption in the entire Kenyan population. So massive losses of post-harvest food losses. Some of those solutions that are out there need public and private investments. Unfortunately, we don't see enough budget allocation in the national budget. We have declarations like the Kampala Declaration recently. We have the right to food in the Kenyan constitution. However, the budget allocation was only reaching 3% of the national budget last year. 54 billion Kenya shilling out of the 4,000 billion of the national budget were given to the agricultural transformation and inclusive growth priority, as it was formulated in the bottom-up economic transformation agenda by the current government. We also see the private sector or the banking sector not investing enough. Although Kenya or agriculture is the largest sector in terms of employment, also relevance for the GDP here in Kenya, only 4% of the banking loans are going to this sector. The low penetration of formal credit in agriculture has largely been attributed to the informality of the sector, but again also to climate change. And we also talked today about climate resilience. The main topic of the GHI this year is how gender justice can advance climate resilience and zero hunger. So also a few words on the gender situation, although I leave that also to my colleague. Gender disparities in land ownership, access to resources and social services continue to undermine women's role in agriculture and nutrition. Although there are some clear facts out there. Educated women are more likely to apply nutrition, sanitation, and child feeding practices. Maternal education and maternal health is clearly linked to higher birth rates, lower child mortality, and improved dietary diversity. An FAO study found out that maternal education contributed more to reducing child malnutrition than increasing the household income. So it's not about the money, it's about the people. Or not only about the money, it's about the people. Women who control income spend more on food, healthcare, education, and improving the household nutrition. Women own less than 20% of land globally, although 50 to 80% they're producing the food that we are eating every day. In Kenya, we have a Land Act of 2012, a reform that gives more rights to Kenyan women, and also the matrimonial property rights have improved over time. Nevertheless, the court often requires proof of a contribution for ownership, financial contribution, and that's very difficult for women who are struggling in their homes and usually provide domestic work as the contribution. On top, the awareness among women on the rights and their ability to claim these rights are structurally limited. The reality is that women are allocated land by their husbands without owning it, and to produce food crops, including vegetables meant for home consumption and to a lesser extent for sale. The clear priority is on the cash crop, and that part of the land is owned by men. As a result, here in Kenya, women providing over 70% of the agricultural labor, but own less than 10% of the land. Again, an FAO study found out that closing this gender gap in accessing those resources such as land, credit, inputs, and extension service would increase the farm yield by 20 to 30%, and reducing hunger globally by 12 to 17%. It's those potentials that we are talking about when we talk about gender justice that have not been realized. And it's not only about fairness, it's also about economic and food security strategies. When women farmers have equal access to resources, they can produce more food, increase household income, and contribute to reducing hunger worldwide. Ladies and gentlemen, towards the end of my speech, the Global Hunger Index 2024 is a wake-up call. We cannot allow to lose that hard-won progress that we had between 2000 and 2015. We must re-engage. Hunger and malnutrition remains an urgent challenge in Kenya and is of paramount importance for the country's future. Addressing the issues mentioned earlier is not just about feeding people, it is about ensuring better health, economic growth, resilience, sustainability, and human dignity. To end hunger and malnutrition in Kenya, we must increase our investments in agriculture and nutrition programs and boost agri-finance in the private sector. We need to strengthen the food system and reduce substantially the post-harvest losses. We need to improve access and training and qualifications, as well as to markets for smallholder farmers. We must ensure that women have equal access to land, credit, agricultural inputs, while strengthening their legal rights and decision-making power in food systems and in their households. We need to scale up climate adaptation and sustainable farming practices, ensure food safety, quality, and regulatory enforcement, and advocate for a stronger and more coherent policies across all the ministries that prioritize food and nutrition security. I urge all of you on TV, in internet, here and beyond, to urge this fight against hunger and malnutrition. We have shown between 2000 and 2015 that change is possible when we act decisively. Even in times of growing global disunity and shrinking development budgets for vulnerable communities, inaction is not an option. The time to act is now. Working together as governments, civil society, private sector and communities, we can build a hunger-free Kenya. Let's make it happen. Thank you very much.
That was nice. Let's once again appreciate Christian. Very detailed, and you've given sort of an overview of what we are expecting this morning. Later on, we'll have a panel discussion in that regard. But as it stands right now, since we've heard from WHH, up next, also a powerhouse in regards to making sure that GHI is out. The other party that is responsible for this report and the country director for Concern Worldwide Kenya. Ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome Wairimu Munyinyi Wahome. Mpigeni makofi until she arrives. Yes. Wairimu, the floor is yours.
Good morning. So, our Honorable CS, Beatrice Askul Moe, CS for EAC, ASALS and Regional Development, Your Excellencies, the First Ladies from Marsabit County and Migori County, we acknowledge your presence here, and also our colleagues from the various government ministries as well. Thank you very much for showing up, and also our colleagues from civil society, including the ones we had on the panel, TISA. Thank you very much for showing up, and other colleagues from peer organizations, but also individuals who have made it here today. Before I continue, because one of the tenets of gender justice is representation, I just want to tell those who might not know that Honorable Beatrice Askul is the first female CS from Turkana County. And Turkana County is one of the counties that Concern works in. It has been present for a number of years, addressing issues on health and nutrition, livelihoods as well, food security, and even education at one point. So we are very honored to have you here. I'll just compliment what my colleague Christian, Country Director for WHH, has said. And I want to start by saying that when you go through the report, you will see that some progress has been made. But I also want to say that because we're talking about hunger, we can do better. And we really do need to do better. It's about time. I'll just quote one statistic as I speak. The rest will be done by Hassan. And one of the highlights of the report is that if we continue at this pace, if we keep the progress towards addressing global hunger as it is, it will take us over 130 years for us to get to the low hunger level. I don't think we have the luxury. I don't think we can afford to do that. So when you look at the report, you'll see the details of that. So I want to start by highlighting that what we actually need then in relation is a revolution of action against hunger and gender injustices so that we can work ourselves towards these rooms of launching global hunger index reports year in, year out. And by a revolution, I mean that we need to ensure that our resources work for us. We need to ensure that we are truly committed to addressing inequalities and how we support women and also men to address issues of food production, to address issues of inequalities, access to credit, land ownership, etc. Now, related to that period of time that I'm talking about, 130 years, we will be talking about probably 2-3 generations from now. We will not be here. And that's a heritage we cannot afford to pass on. So we cannot afford, really, as a country, Kenya, to transfer hunger. We cannot afford to transfer malnutrition. We cannot afford to transfer nutrition deficiencies to the next generation. And for that to happen, I want to echo again the position of our panelist, Sally, and she said accountability, really. If we're truly, truly committed to accountability, then 90% of the issues that we are discussing and we shall be discussing in this room will be sorted out, and this launching of the Global Hunger Index report will no longer be necessary. We also need to invest in infrastructure, and often when we talk about infrastructure, we think physical, and that is very critical in terms of facilitating access, market access across the different counties that we have, so that even as we encourage more women to rise up, not only from subsistence, but also engage in profit-making initiatives when it comes to agriculture. We must remember that infrastructure is very important, and that is why we have parts of the country that continue to report waste, and we have parts of the country that continue to report lack year in, year out, and yet the issue is as simple as ensuring that the allocations that are provided for developing infrastructure actually are utilized for doing exactly that. We also need to talk about digital infrastructure in this day and age as well. Education is very important, and with education comes the ability to understand and utilize digital platforms that also facilitate how we engage. And again, especially for women for whom many are still disadvantaged, they don't have access to information, or their access to information is very different, it's poor quality, it's late. So that's another area in investment that we need to make as we talk about gender justice within the context of addressing global hunger, and especially in this country. We've heard about the importance of access to water as a fundamental right. Again, shifting our mindsets. We know and we are experiencing climate change even as we gather here today. So we can no longer afford to bank our water management on traditional ways of waiting for rain that we can no longer predict, of rain harvesting for those who can afford it. We need radical shifts into how we manage access to water, and especially in the ASAL regions where we work. When it comes to equitable food systems, I think one of the things that is very deceiving is that food systems and value chains sometimes appear to thrive, okay? And you will hear reports about how these are thriving. But if they are thriving in the midst of a country that reports food shortages year in, year out, then they represent a false and unsustainable trend that only facilitates inequalities, because you will be planning on the basis of that data. And again, we heard about the importance of data, but that data needs to be real so that when we plan within the context of our realities, and so that we can also minimize the inequalities that come about with misguided planning or the lack of planning at all. And then we cannot have this conversation again without, and it has been emphasized, addressing the issue of land ownership and the decision making that comes with it. And we know that our laws now have changed, are very progressive, but the practice remains very different. That is why we still have quite a very significant number of women in this country that do not own land, and therefore cannot make decisions related to land that are useful and sustainable. And just to put it in context, a simple matter, a matter of, say, cutting down a tree or planting a tree or deciding which crop to grow this season might appear very easy, might appear like a decision you think about overnight, wake up and implement. But for most women, especially those that are marginalized, and there are very many in this country, that decision is not a decision that they make. That decision is made by somebody else. And that is very dangerous, because they're the primary producers. And if you're a primary producer, but you do not have the privilege of decision making, then there is a disconnect there that obviously the implications we continue to see in terms of production, in terms of access to credit, etc. So we need to focus on transformative interventions so that those who have been left way behind can be given the right and the opportunity to catch up. Otherwise, like I said again, year in, year out, we will gather in different rooms and discuss the same issues in different ways without making progress. To also say that, related to the same, we cannot afford to have our health systems. Our health systems are already burdened, very burdened as a country. We cannot then afford to have our health systems burdened by diseases that can be prevented through access to food and good nutrition practices. And unfortunately, again, in some of the areas where we work for children, for women, those are the cases that we see going in and out, seeking healthcare in the facilities, issues that can be prevented if we were to address the components of global hunger. We have the element of conflict. We must avoid conflict at all costs as a country. Conflict is very expensive. Countries that have suffered years of conflict also report high incidences of hunger. And not just countries, but also in our own country, counties that have had a history of conflict, even if not now, that history has continued to follow them and has continued to reflect in their ability to feed themselves. So we need to address conflict and avoid it at all costs, because it underdevelops our communities or retrogresses the progress that has been made. It's very costly in terms of the ability of communities to engage in production. It affects markets, it affects investor confidence. It's simply something that we need to avoid at all costs. And then I want to finish off by saying that I know that gender justice, when some people hear gender justice, they block their inner ears and they say, there we go again. It's that conversation. Indeed, today, it is that conversation. It is a conversation of gender justice as a pathway to climate resilience and zero hunger. And to say that really, gender justice is the ideal, endpoint. And by saying the ideal endpoint, we are saying that if you're going to address barriers, then we need to quantify the inequalities that exist in our country and also address the same by ensuring that we redistribute opportunities and the resources that we have to address those inequalities, and then thereafter, then we can start to talk about gender justice, because we will have corrected that. And so we hope, because we've got our colleagues here who provide very good, sometimes very difficult leadership against the demands that we have in government, we hope to see a reflection that will factor in the issues that we'll be discussing today in the national and in the county budgets, because we already know currently the ecosystem, we know the issues that are going on globally, even in terms of access to resources to support some of the interventions that organizations like Concern and WHH go. And if we're going to sustain these interventions as a country, then we need to prioritize utilizing our own resources to address the inequalities that we have, so that we can we can be food secure as a country and make more progress in terms of addressing hunger and avoid passing on a hunger heritage to the generations to come. I thank you all.
All right. Once again, let us appreciate Wairimu Munyinyi Wahome, Country Director, Concern Worldwide Kenya. And she's given a very important statistics that if we continue at the rate at which we are now, we'll achieve zero hunger in 130 years. Ask the person sitting next to you, what kind of ancestor would you like to be in 130 years? Is it that ancestor where people will be like, why didn't you plant trees, my ancestors? While others were doing things to eradicate hunger across the world. What were you doing, all right? Because trust you me, we are placed on earth with a purpose, and we shall be held accountable one day. So while we are here, what can we do to make sure that we are pushing general betterness of the people of Kenya and the world at large? So thank you very much for that response. Just to remind you, those of us who are joining us, we are at the launch of the Global Hunger Index 2025, and our theme is Gender Justice, a Pathway to Climate Resilience and Zero Hunger, and that is our discussion this morning. This particular index is out. Earlier on, somebody hinted that we are number 100 across the world. Yeah, we've passed the completion mark 100%. Yeah, but we can do better, definitely. So the big question is, what is in this particular index? We'd like to dig deep, and the gentleman to help us go deep into this particular discussion, I saw him, I complimented his shoes because he has amazing shoes. They are not red bottom, but they are a little bit different. Ladies and gentlemen, please let us appreciate Hassan Olo, Programs Director, Concern Worldwide Kenya. Mpigeni makofi tafadhali. Mr. Olo, you even have 2 laptops. I hope the space is enough for you. You need to connect the HDMI. All right, there we go. Thank you very much. Mr. Olo, did you have breakfast? You're fasting. Oh, it's that season, yeah? So we've been tempting you. I love your self-control. All right, the floor should be yours right now. Enjoy your presentation, sir.
Thank you. Honorable Cabinet Secretary Beatrice, Your Excellencies, First Ladies of Marsabit and Migori, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I'm Hassan Olo, Programs Director with Concern Worldwide, and I'd like to attract your attention to both screens, this side and this side, as we go through briefly through the Global Hunger Index 2024 report. I think much has been said to give an insight into the report, and I believe each one of you in the hall here has the physical copy of both the abridged and the full report. Concern worldwide, World Hunger Hilfe, and this year, that is 2024, the Institute for International Peace of International Institute for Peace and Armed Conflict have come together to come up with the Global Hunger Index report. And the whole idea of the Global Hunger Index report is to create attention to the state of hunger, bring attention to the countries and regions that are not making progress, and also call of us to action. So this report was officially launched on 10th October 2024, marking the World Food Day, and it's been presented in a number of different forums. As you can see, this is the 19th edition, 2024, since 2006, every year with a different theme, all calling us to action against hunger. Over the past 19 years, it's become a key civil society report.
Check. All right.
Sorry for that. Excuse me. Thank you. It's become a key tool for us to create a call for action towards addressing hunger. And this year's theme, as mentioned by our two country directors, is gender justice, a pathway to climate resilience, and zero hunger. So what does it tell us? And the report is mentioned, I think Noah mentioned earlier on, both our country directors mentioned earlier on. It's constituted of 4 key indicators. One of the key indicators is undernourishment, the level of calorific intake, and this constitutes about a third of the report, a third of the index calculation. The second one is child wasting and child stunting. Child stunting is an irreversible phenomenon. This is a child who is shorter for their age, and beyond 2 years, if this is not addressed, it becomes a lifelong phenomenon and affects the child's ability, cognitive ability, developmental ability of growing, and also benefiting from other development. And also child wasting. This is a child who is too thin for their weight. This is a child suffering from hunger, a child suffering from acute malnutrition. So the two of them constitute a third of the report. And the third one is child mortality. This is children who don't live beyond their 5th birthday. Unfortunately, that number is quite significantly. So these 4 particular indicators joined together give us the Global Hunger Index. The Global Hunger Index is ranked and categorized in different phases, from low hunger, moderate hunger, serious hunger, alarming hunger, and extremely alarming, as you can see from the different color codes that are used. Unfortunately, since 2016, there's been very little progress that has been made. When we started developing the Global Hunger Index in 2000, the Global Hunger Index for the 130 countries that are tracked was 28. A score of 0 is zero hunger. A score of 100 is extremely alarming. So the higher you go, the worse it is. In 2008, we had remarkable progress, around 4.5 reduction to 23.5. 2016, we had another significant reduction to 18.8. Unfortunately, since 2016, we've literally mark-timed, not really made any progress. We are at 18.3. This is quite varied in different countries. As you can see in the map, quite a number of countries. Green denotes low hunger or zero hunger. And you can see western parts of the country, Latin America, most of Asia, best part of Europe, are all in the low hunger or moderate hunger. While sub-Saharan Africa has both serious and alarming countries. Of these, 6 countries are critical, as you can see, all of them in Africa except Yemen in the Middle East. We have 36 countries that are alarming or serious, and 37 countries that are moderately in hunger score. If you look at the countries by region, Africa south of the Sahara and South Asia are the ones that have significant categorization of being serious or crisis. And Africa south of the Sahara, you can see there's been a remarkable reduction from 41.7 in 2000 to around 33 in 2008, 28.2 in 2016, and we've also mark-timed. Similarly to South Asia, the only region that has actually gone upwards is Latin America and Caribbean. In as much as there is moderate hunger, there is an increase compared to 2016 and now. Where do we rank as Kenya? We have a categorization of a score of 25, which is considered as serious. We should be normal, but when you look at the neighbors that we have around us, we have Republic of Tanzania scoring slightly better than us, Malawi, Djibouti, Comoros, Mauritius. We are also doing slightly better than Rwanda, Ethiopia, Uganda, Mozambique, Zimbabwe, Sudan, Zambia. And we have the two countries, Madagascar and Somalia, that are in crisis. How has this score fared? In 2000, Kenya had a score of 36.3, which was considered alarming. We moved to 25.0 in 2024, which is still serious. That's a remarkable progress. I think we need to clap for ourselves. But then when we delve deeper and look at how are we performing over the four categories, the four periods, 2000, 36.3, very good progress in 2008 at a score of 29. 2016 was our best score at 24. Unfortunately, in 2024, we've actually reversed and are experiencing more hunger. Let's also consider what context this is taking place. Between 2016 and 2024, we've had two major drought emergencies, one being the worst in over 40 years. We've had the socioeconomic impact of COVID-19. We had the worst desert locust infestation in 75 years. We had some of the worst flood incidents. What do they do cumulatively? They impact our access to food, they impact our ability to address hunger, but we've also had increased revenue. We've had devolution being entrenched. We've had a lot of development, private sector growth and development, a lot of agriculture production, but we are not doing enough. We are not catching up with addressing hunger. How are these numbers calculated for 2024? That 4.5% of the population in Kenya is undernourished, which means about a third of our 50 million population has minimal calorific intake as required. We are not meeting the 2,100 kilocalories per day. 17.6% of children under 5 are stunted. This should be a really worrying consideration, because this means 76% of our children are not going to live their potential. They are not going to have adequate cognitive development, because this is an irreversible phenomena beyond the first 1,000 days, the 9 months of pregnancy and the first 2 years of life. 4.5% of our children under 5 are wasted. These are children that are too thin or don't have the adequate weight that they should by the age of 5. And these are children that are at risk of starvation, at risk of death. 4.1% of our children under 5 years die before their 5th birthday. And we are talking about Kenya, a beacon of development in the region, a country that other countries in the region aspire to us, and we still have this kind of statistics. It means there is a long journey that we need to go towards. There is a lot that we can do. How have these figures fared? If you look, the top brownish chart, that is child stunting. We've moved from around 42% in 2000 to where we are at 17% in 2024. Still significantly higher than it should be. Unfortunately, the second chart, this is child mortality. This is undernourishment. The population that are not meeting kilocalories that are required, we are actually increasing from 2016. We have more people experiencing hunger, and this includes the entire population, both young and old. We have a higher threshold than we did in 2000. We have more people, more proportion of the population facing hunger than we had in 2000, than we had in 2008, than we had in 2016. If you look at the two bottom charts, the pinkish chart, that is child wasting. We are sort of mark timing. We are always just under 10%, but there are some counties, around 10 counties, where most of the 800,000 children that are wasted, as mentioned by Christian, that are suffering from severe acute malnutrition or moderate acute malnutrition are coming from. We are below the emergency threshold of 15%. This is the universal agreed threshold, but we still are mark timing from 2000 to 2024. If you look at the last one on child mortality, we've had a significant progress from around 10% in 2000 to where we are at 4.7%, but there's been almost no reduction since 2016. It means there is a lot that we need to do. How do we compare with the rest of the world? 22 countries with moderate, serious, or alarming 2024 GHI scores has increased since 2016, and unfortunately this includes Kenya, where we are seeing hunger increasing since 2016. That's been 8 years of progress, 8 years since we made the declaration of Sustainable Development Goals of attaining zero hunger by 2030. Unfortunately, at the rate we are going at the moment, we might not attain, we are first of all sure not to attain zero hunger by 2030. If we go at the current progress, we will only attain zero hunger by 2162. That's slightly over 130 years from today, as mentioned by Wairimu. Is it something that we should be aspiring towards? When we made a commitment of attaining zero hunger in 15 years, we made this commitment in 2015. 20 countries with moderate, serious, or alarming GHI score, progress has largely stalled. So 22 countries, we're actually seeing a reversal. 20 countries, we are seeing stalling. And if you look at the two charts on the right side, the top one is Kenya, where we are seeing a reversal. The bottom one is Syrian Arab Republic. 2000, 2008, there was normal hunger. 2016 and 2024, we are seeing movement to serious, which means what armed conflict can actually do, what lack of peace can actually do to create hunger. And we are seeing more of this globally. At least 64 countries will not achieve zero hunger by 2030. And this is only among the 130 countries, not the entire 195 countries globally, the 130 countries that were assessed by the Global Hunger Index. That's a significant number. Unfortunately, today we have around 584 million people hungry. It's estimated, it's projected by 2030, we will have 582 million people still facing hunger. A year that we had committed in 2015 to have zero hunger, to have no one facing hunger. We'll have about 500 million people facing hunger at the current progress that we are making. What does the world look like? In as much as it's 20 years since we made a commitment to right to food, in as much as it's about 75 years since we made the commitment towards universal human rights, today we have 733 million people undernourished, facing hunger, less calorific intake. We have 148 million children under 5 years who are stunted globally. We have 45 million children who are wasted. We have almost 5 million children dying before the age of 5. And we are only how many years before our SDG commitment of zero hunger? 5 years. 2.8 billion people cannot afford a healthy diet. That's almost a third of the global population. What are the key drivers that are driving hunger, that are hitting the world's poorest hardest? We have climate change. I think it's been spoken of enough. We are seeing at one point we are facing one or two or multiple climate-induced crises. We have drought, which has become an almost a common phenomena. I think in Kenya we had the ending drought emergency commitment by 2022. And now I don't know what that's going to be called going forward. We have floods, which by 2030 is estimated to become the most impactful climate shock globally. More people will be impacted by flooding than any other climate shock. And we are increasingly seeing this in Kenya. Every other year, we see the number of people impacted, the devastation is becoming severe. We have high domestic food prices, a common phenomenon also in Kenya. We have high debt burden. I think both the national government and the county government have really spoken a lot about the impact of debt. And unfortunately, there is no clear pathway to reducing the debt. It's only going to increase. There is a lot of inequalities, which I'll shortly speak about, and the key focus and the key theme of this particular year's Global Hunger Index. There is large-scale armed conflict, like you saw, Syrian Arab Republic, a country that in 2008 was considered normal, is now facing levels of hunger that were not experienced in 2000 or 2008. And there is a lot of market disruptions. And I think our earlier guest in the morning quite spoke about this particular happening. Progress is possible, despite all these challenges. It's not all gloom. We've seen some notable progress in the report for Bangladesh, which moved from serious to almost moderate, Mozambique, which moved from alarming to serious. We've seen Nepal moving also from serious to almost normal. Somalia, that is still in alarming, but moved critical steps, and also Togo, that have moved. Although these are countries that experience challenges, it means there is hope. If we have the right investments, if we have the right policies, if we all move with a commitment to addressing hunger. Why gender inequality? Why is it important in addressing hunger? Why is it important in addressing climate resilience? If I'll indulge you on this chart, the horizontal graph is gender inequality index. 0 is our desired gender inequality. 1 is the highest level of inequality. On the vertical graph, we have the risk of food systems from climate change. 0 low risk, 1 high risk. If you look at the countries on the top right quadrant, these are all the countries that are either in serious or alarming or critically alarming. And we're also part of that, which means the countries that are facing high climate change risks will most likely be the ones facing the highest hunger if there is gender inequality. It goes hand in hand. As Wairimu mentioned, most of us wouldn't want to have this conversation, but unfortunately it's the reality. Unless we address gender inequality, we cannot adequately address hunger. We should be aspiring to be in that small country, in small quadrant, the left-hand low quadrant, where we have Estonia, Latvia, Croatia, Thailand, Fiji, all the low hunger index countries. Discriminatory norms and gender-based violence often place women, sexual and gender minorities at heightened risk of food and nutrition insecurity. And climate change impacts while hampering their ability to cope with these challenges. And why? Because women and girls are typically hardest hit by food insecurity and malnutrition. I think it's been spoken of a little bit earlier. They also suffer disproportionately from the effects of weather extremes and climate emergencies. This year's essay that you'll find in the report focuses on gender justice. And what is gender justice? This is equity between people in all spheres of life. It's critical to a just world and to achieving climate and food justice. I'll really encourage us to read the essay. It's quite insightful, and this is captured by Nitya Rao from University of East Anglia, Sierra Vasilo, University of Wageningen. I hope, Christian, I'm pronouncing that correctly, and Zifa Gertrude Toviki, I hope I'm also pronouncing that correctly, from University of Ghana. What do they define by gender justice? Gender justice is considered in this essay from 3 interconnected dimensions: recognition, redistribution, and representation. Recognition of multiple and intersecting discriminatory norms, values, perceptions, and differences. Recognition of different people's varied needs, vulnerabilities, and opportunities. Recognition of women's environmental knowledge and values. Redistribution of public resources, especially social protection measures, in an equitable way. Redistribution of land, employment opportunities, inputs, and technologies. And redistribution of access to credit, extension services, and other resources, as well as redistribution of access to education, skills, and knowledge services. And representation of women and other marginalized groups in politics and decision-making at all levels. Representation of communities affected by climate change and food security in relevant policy-making fora. representation of women's interest in accountability mechanisms for policies on gender equality, climate resilience, and food and nutrition security. These are looked at. For us to achieve gender justice, we require change at different levels. If you look at, these changes are both informal and informal. Changes are systemic and individual. So on the left side, redistribution can happen at formal level, and this is equal entitlements to productive resources such as credit, finance, seeds, water, land, and common property and extension services. I think the earlier panel in the morning really did justice to this. Redistribution of equal opportunities for education, employment, equal distribution of social protection. This is individual change. But simultaneously, we require informal changes. Recognition of increased agency and empowerment in relation to resource control and decision making, and recognition of raised women's and men's consciousness around equitable food production and provisioning. Similarly, we need some systemic changes, as captured here: representation in decision making, strengthened legal entitlements and policies, and recognition of women as farmers, entrepreneurs, and workers, reduced drudgery of women's work through public investments in care, education, and health, and recognition of elimination of discriminatory cultural norms around food, farming, environment, and markets. We really need to take that from a systemic, individual, formal, informal. We all need to move towards the same direction for us to ensure that we can reduce gender inequality and ultimately help us also reduce hunger. Equity and justice must be central to climate, nutrition, and food system policies. And for us, the key rallying call that I'd like to make today is governments must act now and strengthen accountability to international law and the enforceability of the right to adequate food, promote gender transformative approaches to food systems and climate policies and programs, and make investments that integrate, promote gender, climate, and food justice. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Once again, let us appreciate Mr. Hassan Olo. Beginning makofi tafadhali. Somebody left their phone here. I don't know. Whose is it? Is it yours, Hassan? I know you're checking your pocket. All right. It's all right. Oh, it's yours, Christian. Oh, all right. That's good. We'll pray for the phone, yeah? Later on so that it never leaves you. But I'm going to hand it over to you. At this particular moment, ladies and gentlemen, that is the report. We've gone into the details, and later on we'll be having a further breakdown. We have a few remarks to make, and I'd suggest our next speakers to be a little bit quick with the remarks because time is really running, yeah? If we continue at this pace, we'll finish the meeting in 130 years, okay? So we need to rush it up. So our next speaker, remember that to be able to have this report, partnership is very important, and these were supported by the Federal Ministry for Economic Cooperation and Development, BMZ, and to give a remark from the German Embassy right here in Nairobi, Policy Officer, Mr. Christian Friedman. Appreciate him as he comes. Beginning my coffee. Welcome, sir. Guten Morgen.
Dankeschön. Good morning, everybody. So we've heard a lot of numbers from the speakers before. Thank you for that. So I won't bother you with much more numbers. But let me appreciate the opportunity of being able to be here for the launch of the 2024 Global Hunger Index. As many others have mentioned, this isn't just another report. It is a reality check, and more importantly, it's a call to action. Hunger is still a huge challenge, and bear with me for another number. And despite all the progress we've made, we've heard it, since 2000, actually the numbers have been going down. But still, we have like around 730 million people that are undernourished. And unfortunately, since to 2019, since before the COVID pandemic, that's an increase of 150 million people. So the numbers are going up. We've seen the chart. And that is something we need to change. We need to turn around the wheel, and we need to get back on track in fighting the hunger. The number of 130 years has been floated many times. And for that, the Global Hunger Index is a critical tool for policymakers and advocates because it provides evidence-based insights that guide targeted interventions. It shapes global food security strategies and holds governments accountable, governments like us, in the fight against hunger. It tells us where we are making progress and where we are falling behind. And this year's findings show that hunger and malnutrition are still being fueled by conflicts, climate change, and gender inequality. And the most vulnerable communities are bearing the brunt, and we cannot afford to look away, and that's why we're here today. So, why am I here? Because Germany is fully committed to tackling hunger head-on. We're building on a long history of supporting food security initiatives worldwide, from pioneering sustainable agricultural programs to championing international food policy dialogues. Germany has consistently worked to address the root causes of hunger and malnutrition, and here's what we're currently doing. So we're supporting with our program smallholder farmers and sustainable agriculture to make food systems more resilient. We're investing in climate-smart farming practices to help communities adapt to changing weather patterns. And we are providing humanitarian aid and emergency food assistance where it needs most. And we are advocating for fair trade policies and inclusive economic growth, because access to food should be a right and not a privilege. And we are putting our money where our mouth is. The federal German government is proud to support this GHI launch in Nairobi, as well as similar events around the world. We are also backing the Right to Fruit project, RTF, where phase 2 has just kicked off. And to strengthen this commitment, Germany has established a dedicated RTF unit with its Federal Ministry of Agriculture to ensure food security remains a top priority. We have also been leading key global conversations through the Policy Against Hunger Conference in 23 and 24, and keeping the focus firmly on the right to food. No country can tackle hunger alone. The 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development sets the ambitious goal of ending hunger by the end of this decade. But let's be honest, we're not on track. As we've heard, we need to step up, we need to work together and push for smarter policies, more investment in real solution. And that's why we are supporting also the Committee on World Food Security, the UN Special Rapporteur on the right to food, and the RTF unit at the FAO. But let's not just talk about hunger, let's do something about it. We need innovative inclusions in sustainable solutions to make sure future generations don't inherit a world where hunger still exists. And Germany is with you in this fight, and we will continue to be so. We will not pull out like others. And it's a fun thing, actually. I've been looking at this, at your coat of arms for so many times. I've seen the lions, the spears, the shield, but it also says Harambee, which I understand means like pulling together, working together. And this is what we're going to do. This is what we need to do. And we will be with you on this way to work together to fight against hunger, to end the world hunger. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Christian, for that. Now we would like to move quickly into the reflections by government officials. We state that we have representation from different ministries, and I understand there are people representing other people, so I'd beg and plead with us that we keep time, if we can keep our remarks at a maximum of 5 minutes, yeah? You can jump some paragraphs, and I believe that it shall be a blessing. So to start us off, I'd like to welcome the Assistant Director, Gender, representing State Department of Gender and Affirmative Action. Ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome Winnie Kananu. Mpigeni makofi tafadhali. Until she arrives. Winnie, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. So the Cabinet Secretary, East African Community, ASALS and Regional Development, Honorable Beatrice Askul Moe. Dignitaries here present, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. My name is Winnie Kananu. I'm from the State Department for Gender and Affirmative Action. I represent the Principal Secretary, Madam Anne Wangombe, who currently was not able to come because we are preparing for the International Women's Day that will take place on Saturday, this coming Saturday, the 8th of March, 2025 in Homa Bay County. And so I take this opportunity to invite you all to Homa Bay. Ladies and gentlemen, the State Department for Gender and Affirmative Action is mandated with policy management, where we ensure that we have a gender-responsive environment, policy environment across all sectors. I therefore laud the efforts of the WHH and the concern worldwide in developing the Global Hunger Index report that will most definitely contribute in a great way towards achieving policy and programming on climate resilience and zero hunger. Ladies and gentlemen, as we have heard from the previous speakers, it is clear that women's role in Africa's food security cannot be overemphasized. As nurturers in the family, women are responsible for food and nutritional security, both at family and community level. Studies have shown that although women are more vulnerable to climate change impacts, they are pivotal in finding the solutions. They therefore must be at the decision-making table to inform policies and programs towards resilience building. This therefore means that we must equitably invest in women and men in order to find sustainable solutions towards climate change. I once again laud this initiative as we acknowledge that women's resilience has direct benefit to families and society in combating hunger and ensuring food security. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Winnie, for representing ably right there. All right. All right. So at this particular moment, I'm being told, you know, our chief guest actually has quite an intro in regards to what she needs to accomplish today. And in the interest of time, she should be speaking soonest. But in order to do that seamlessly, and also to give him an opportunity to come for his phone, as you introduce our chief guest, Christian, please come. Let us appreciate Christian as he comes for his phone. And secondly, he introduces our chief guest for the chief's speech, and then later on we'll pick it up. Here you go. Very nice phone, sir. The floor is yours.
Good opportunity. No missed calls. All fine. Thank you very much. Yeah, thanks. Thanks for listening in again, and I hope you found it interesting, the presentations and the speeches so far. So now it's time to welcome our guest of honor. Again, thanks so much for taking the time, and we appreciate really, you told me that you had got notified only very late yesterday, and you have a very important meeting with the East African community. So thanks so much for making the time anyway, and we are looking forward to your speech. Honorable Beatrice Moe, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Before I start, I would want to introduce myself properly now. I'm called Beatrice Askul Moe, Cabinet Secretary for East Africa Community Affairs, HASAL, and Regional Development. I want to get this point clear that I'm the Minister for East Africa Community Affairs. I was expecting that wimbo wa jumuiya. Yes, I kept talking to my madam over there that it's not complete. So next time, actually it's like becoming an obvious thing. When you sing the Kenyan one, that other one must. It is incorporated of late, and next time, muzirudie. Asante. I'm here representing His Excellency the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya, Professor Kithure Kindiki. So I am actually reading his speech. On my side, the reason why I'm a bit quick in speaking then simply because I have other commitments. I am in the command of the ministry, a co-opted member for East Africa Legislative Assembly. And it's in the few minutes, the meeting will be virtual, and I'm again the chair for Council of Ministers. So those roles are automatic, I can't delegate. So allow me to rush the program for the sake of that other responsibility. Asanteni. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, esteemed colleagues, members of the media, and all the stakeholders present today. It is a profound honor to stand before you and deliver this address on behalf of the Deputy President of the Republic of Kenya during the launch of the 2024 Global Hunger Index report for our beloved nation. This event is not merely a formal gathering. It represents a pivotal moment for reflection, commitment, and action as we confront the multifaceted challenges of hunger, food security, and climate resilience. First and foremost, I would like to extend my heartfelt congratulations to the WHH and the concern worldwide for their invaluable contributions in developing this vital tool for measuring and tracking hunger. The Global Hunger Index provides essential insights into our progress in addressing hunger and malnutrition, while also identifying critical areas that require urgent intervention. Your dedication to this cause not only informs our strategies, but also empowers us to take meaningful actions that can transform lives. The theme of today's launch, how gender justice can advance climate resilience and zero hunger, resonates deeply with the current realities we face. It highlights the intricate connections between gender equality, climate change, and food security, which are three critical dimensions that are interwoven and require our urgent coordinated efforts. Hunger in Kenya. As we delve into findings of the Global Hunger Index report, we must first confront the stark realities it reveals. This year, Kenya ranks 100th out of 127 countries with a score of 25.0, placing the country at a serious level of hunger. While this represents a serious concern, it is also important to recognize the significant progress we have made since 2000. Kenya has improved its GHI score by 37%, transitioning from an alarming to a serious level of hunger. This progress is testament to our collective efforts and commitment to addressing food insecurity. However, despite these advancements, millions of our fellow citizens continue to grapple with food insecurity. The statistics are alarming. Countless children suffer from malnutrition, which possesses serious threats to their health, cognitive development, at the future opportunities. We must not lose sight of the work that still lies ahead. The issue of hunger is compounded by the looming specs of climate change. Erratic weather concerns, prolonged drought, and devastating flood disrupts agricultural production and exacerbates food scarcity. Our farmers, particularly those in the arid and semi-arid, face immense challenges that threaten not only their livelihoods, but also food security of the entire community. The role of women in agriculture. At the heart of our agricultural sector are women, who constitute nearly 50% of the workforce. They are not only caregivers, but also farmers, innovators, and community leaders. However, systematic barriers often limit their full participation in agricultural development. Despite their critical contributions, women frequently encounter discrimination, limited access to resources, and inadequate support in decision-making processes. Empowering women is not just a matter of justice, it is essential for enhancing our national food security. Studies consistently show that when women have equal access to land, credit, and technology, agriculture productivity increases significantly. This boosts its productivity as a ripple effect, leading to improved food security, better health outcomes, and enhanced educational opportunities for families and communities alike. Climate resilience, which is a shared responsibility. To effectively impact climate change, we must adopt a gender-sensitive approach that recognizes the unique challenges women face in agriculture. Women often possess invaluable knowledge about local ecosystem and sustainable farming practices. By investing in their capacity to adapt to climate challenges through targeted training, resources, and support, we can strengthen our collective resilience. The government is committed to creating an enabling environment that uplifts women in agriculture. This includes implementing policies that promote gender equality, providing gender-sensitive training programs, and ensuring that women's voices are integrated into decision-making process at all levels. It is crucial that we actively seek to dismantle barriers that hinder women participation and empower them to be leaders within our communities. Moreover, fostering partnership across sectors, government, civil society, and private sectors is vital. Together, we can develop innovative solutions that empower women and strengthen our agricultural systems against the impacts of climate change. Collaboration will help us leverage resources, share knowledge, and implement best practices that benefit all stakeholders involved. Holistic approach to food security. Achieving zero hunger requires a multifaceted approach that addresses the root causes of food insecurity. This encompasses investing in essential infrastructure such as roads, storage facility, market access that enable farmers to connect with consumers and reduce post-harvest losses. Furthermore, we must prioritize health and nutrition alongside food production, ensuring that our population has access to diverse and nutritional foods is paramount. Initiatives that promote nutrition education and address malnutrition should be central to our strategies for ensuring food security for all Kenyans. Leveraging technology and innovation. In today's digital era, technology can be a transformative force in our fight against hunger and poverty. We must harness innovative solutions that empower farmers, particularly women, to access vital information, markets, and resources. For instance, mobile technology can facilitate the sharing of the best practices, provide weather forecasts, and communicate market prices, enabling farmers to make informed decisions and enhance their productivity. Additionally, we must invest in research and development to create climate-smart agricultural practices and technologies that can withstand the challenges posed by climate change. By encouraging innovation in agriculture practices, we can equip our farmers with the tools they need to thrive in an uncertain environment. Addressing socioeconomic barriers. It is essential to recognize that hunger and food insecurity do not exist in a vacuum. They are intricately linked to broader socioeconomic issues. Poverty, lack of education, and inadequate health care systems all contribute to the cycle of hunger. Therefore, our approach must also address these underlying factors. We must work to ensure that all Kenyans have access to quality education, health care, and economic opportunities. By lifting communities out of poverty and providing them with the tools to succeed, we can create a sustainable environment where food security is a reality for all. In the spirit of international cooperation and collaboration, in our increasingly interconnected world, our efforts must extend beyond our national borders. We must engage with our international partners to share knowledge, resources, and best practices. Collaborative initiatives can help us learn from successful models and implement strategies that have proven effective in various contexts. We must also advocate for global policies that support food security and gender equality. The United Nations Sustainable Development Goals provides a robust framework for this work, and we must align our national efforts with these global priorities. To call for an action, as we launch the 2024 GHI report today, I urge all of you to reaffirm your collective commitment to a future where no Kenyans suffer from hunger and where every woman is empowered to contribute to food security. It is not a solely government initiative. It is a movement that requires the active engagement of all stakeholders, policymakers, community leaders, international partners, and the private sector. We must advocate for policies that promote gender equality and food security, ensuring women have the resources, the training, and support they need to thrive in their agricultural endeavors. Together, we can establish a framework that recognizes and elevates the critical role of women in agriculture and food security. In closing, I want to reiterate our unwavering commitment to hunger-free Kenya. Achieving zero hunger is not just a goal, it is our moral obligation. It is our commitment to the dignity and the rights of every Kenyan, especially the women who work tirelessly to feed their families and nourish their communities. As we move forward, let us do so with renewed determination and solidarity. Together, through gender justice and collective action, we can pave the way for sustainable and resilient future, the one that is equitable and free from hunger. Let us take this opportunity not just to celebrate our achievement, but to commit ourselves to the vital work that lies ahead. Together, we can create a Kenya where food security is a right for all and where women play an integral role in building sustainable future. Thank you for your attention, and let us advance together towards this vital goal. Thank you.
Beautiful speech. I know you are chairing lots of committees, but we would like to launch quickly before you jump out. Is that okay? We'd like to do a proper launch. So, Madam CS, just you can just stay there. Please come on board. Let's have the two Christians, of course. Madam Warimu, please also come on board. Let us have also representation from the government. I know we've jumped a bunch of speeches right there. Somebody came prepared and we just jumped over them. You can come for a photo session even as we launch. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the official launch for the Global Hunger Index 2025, themed Gender Justice, a Pathway to Climate Resilience and Zero Hunger. Let everyone have a copy. Asante sana, thank you very much. First Lady Marsabit County and Chair of the County First Ladies Association. Also, thank you very much for gracing us with your presence. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the Global Hunger Index Report 2025. All right, so at this particular moment, we want to do, I'm being told, we are unveiling, we are revealing like this, yeah? So I'll give a countdown. Are we ready, ladies and gentlemen? In 10, I know you're expecting me to start from 3. In 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, start pulling it a little bit. 4, 3, 2, 1. Ladies and gentlemen, let us put our hands together for the Global Hunger Index Report 2024. Kenya, Gender Justice, a Pathway to Climate Resilience and Zero Hunger. You can just hold the copy of your report. Madam CS, do you have a copy of the report? All right, there we have it. Hold it and smile to the camera. I know some people will be saying you're launching a hunger report and you're smiling to the camera. So there is a contrast right there, but let us smile. Thank you very much. We appreciate you. Once again, let us appreciate this wonderful team. Asante sana. The rest of us can leave. We can just remain with Madam CS, Christian and Wairimu for a photo session right there. Asante sana. Thank you very much. Okay, the photographer is requesting everyone to go back. Okay. All right. All right. Let's go. Now, this is what is called director of photography. If you don't go to the gym, we'll see it right here. Because these are heavy report. Madam CS, sorry, we are putting you into much labor. I don't know whether you've worked in the Ministry of Labor before, but this is what we do to make sure that we're doing the heavy lifting. You can smile just to show that we are doing something and we are making progress in regards to eradicating hunger, not only in Kenya, but Africa and the world all over. Asanteni sana, we can put it back, we've gotten it. Sawa sawa, I was requesting that just a picture of the three, Madam CS, Christian and Wairimu also, to be able to take. The rest of us can just sit. Thank you very much. I was tempted to make you lift the report, but I realized you're only 3. Initially, you were hundreds. Okay? So you can just smile. Let's have that photo. Thank you very much. Asante sana. I hope they're looking good. Yes, they are from my perspective. Once again, let us appreciate our wonderful CS for the input. All right, Asanteni sana. At this particular moment, I'm meant to understand that we've done the launch, we've flipped the program, and now we are getting rid of the big books. Tell your neighbor, please read the report, okay? Some of you have reports in your living rooms. They're gathering dust. I ask you, what is this report about? You're like, I think we had breakfast, some sausage or something, yeah? You link reports with breakfast. No, read the report so that we can make progress. All right, so at this particular moment, of course, once again, I'd like to appreciate our chief guest, Honorable Beatrice Eskol Moy, Cabinet Secretary, East African Community Affairs, ASALS and Regional Development. And I'll once again like to apologize for not playing the East African anthem. That is a huge dent to regional integration, but we'll not make the same mistake. In fact, we can write even another song for East Africa, right? Later on. But in closing, we'll make sure that we have that anthem. But thank you very much. You can leave at your own pleasure, Madam CS. We go back to the program. And even as we do so, we've been seated for a long time. Just stand up wherever you are. Just stand up. I want to make sure that everyone is awake. Okay, stand up, stand up, stand up, stand up. Stand up. Raise your right hand. Raise your right hand. Raise your right hand. Thank you very much, Madam CS. Raise your right hand. You can wave to Madam CS as she leaves. Just wave to her. All right. You can raise your left hand. Left hand, left hand, left hand. Okay, you can do that. Do you have 5 fingers? I hope I'm not discriminating. Hi, guys. This is practicing when you go Maju. You say hi. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. You can have your seats. That's all exercise we have today, other than lifting the reports. Okay? So, at this particular moment, back to some of our addresses before we come to our panel discussion. Initially, we had gotten representation from the Ministry of Gender. Can I have my phone, please? I know I've been updated on some of the speakers, so I'll just like to make sure that is happening. Thank you very much, sir. Asante sana. All right, so our next speaker is the Director, National Social Protection Secretariat, representing Ministry of Labor and Social Protection. Ladies and gentlemen, help me welcome Jen Muyanga. Mpigeni makofi tafadhali akuja hadi afike. Madam Jen, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good morning, everyone. To our first ladies who are here with us, my colleagues present, the civil society, and all of us, I want to say thank you very much for this opportunity. And I think from where I sit, from the social protection docket, the statistics that we've gotten today are a bit worrying, and it's a call to action for all of us. The State Department for Social Protection implements the Inua Jamii program, the cash transfer. We also have other complementary programs, and one in particular that I would want to highlight is the nutrition improvement through cash and health education, which is basically a program that looks at nutrition for children below 36 months. And like you've been told, I'm not a nutritionist, I'm a social scientist, but the nutritionist will tell us your window opportunity of cognitive development is in your first 1,000 days, from conception to when you are 2 years. And the one advantage I have is I can see very many young people here. Kindly get to know, when you get to that level of having babies, talk to your nutritionist. They will be very, very helpful. So we really want to appreciate the fact that we now have data that we can work with. And we also need to be looking at the whole concept of what is the role of women in this and what are the barriers that women are facing that make this whole program or this whole problem of hunger among households a challenge. I have the disadvantage or the advantage of dealing with the most vulnerable segment of the society. I am dealing with the old people. I am dealing with the orphans and vulnerable children, and I'm dealing with persons with disabilities. And all these people, nutrition forms a critical part of how they develop and how they do their things on a daily basis. So we really want to appreciate all the partners that have come along in giving us this global index. And I'm hoping that as a country, we can be able to pick this up. My parting shot on this is, hunger is just not about food. It is a matter of dignity, health, and human rights. Let us continue to work together towards a country where hunger does not hinder human capital development. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jen Muyanga, Director, National Social Protection Secretariat, representing the Ministry of Labor and Social Protection. At this particular moment, we'd like to go into health, and I'd like to welcome the Director, Administration at the Ministry of Health, Mawira Mungania. Is she around, Mawira? Ministry of Health. All right. This particular moment, swiftly moving on. You know, rapture might have happened. Look at the person sitting next to you. You are left behind, you know. It will be interesting. Now, we understand that devolution is very important, and there are initiatives within our counties that help us break this bigger goal of achieving zero hunger into achievable bite-sized sort of agendas that can be achieved at the county level, sub-county level. That's how you build and conquer the issue of hunger across the world. So devolution is very important. And today we are honored to have the First Lady of Marsabit County, and who's also the Chair Lady of County First Ladies Association. Now, I don't know for the counties that have female governors, whether their husbands have also joined this County First Ladies Association. But ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together and help me welcome Her Excellency Alametu Jetani, First Lady Marsabit County. She comes to give her remarks. Beginning makofi hadi Afrika. The floor is yours.
Good morning. All protocols observed, and yes, they are part of the association. For the County First Ladies Association, an association for spouses of governors in Kenya, ours is to complement the work governors do in the county. We advocate for change, and we are the voice of the vulnerable, the women, the youth, and the persons living with disabilities. We capitalize on the soft issues. While governors are judged by the number of kilometers of road they build, the hospitals, we look at the gender disparities. How do we talk about issues that affect women? And thank you very much for having us today, for seeing the value for gender justice, a pathway to climate resilience and zero hunger. We know that while climate change affects everyone, it affects mostly women, and mostly women in the rural setup. Anytime there is drought, anytime there is floods, even the famous lady who says Serikali's idea is a woman, they are the first ones to be affected. Why? Because they are the first respondents. They are usually the caregivers, and it hits them hard. The number of kilometers they have to walk to look for water, to look for pasture, for, you know, when the animals go with the big men, the cattle, the small ones, the cows are taken care of at home. So that is the effect it has on these women. And when you give them opportunities, when you educate them, when you give them the value, they can be change makers. And that's why we are advocating for education of these women, for giving them opportunities to sit on the table and make decisions, because they have the information. With information, they make better choices and are able to be change makers. Just as all speakers have spoken about, do they have land owning rights? Do they have, like Werimo said, do you have a decision to make or build or plant or move? Even for those of us who are pastoralists, to a certain place, the decisions are made at a different level. So how do we bring them on the table and they are able to make these decisions? On issues of health and hunger, we've seen stunting, we've seen malnutrition. Have we educated our women enough to know what it takes to talk to the child in the womb and the first 1,000 days of their lives, what it means, the impact. All this boils down to, have you educated the woman? So for us to be able to bring these numbers from 100 over 127 to the 130-something years to be able to curb this thing, we feel like when you bring women to the table, when you advocate, when you talk to them, not only in board meetings, but at that level, and tell them what is right, this issue, both for climate change and hunger, can be addressed better. Thank you very much, and we are ready to work with the partners in the House to advocate for this. Asanteni. But I was ambushed.
All right, thank you very much, Your Excellency Alameti Jatani, First Lady Marsabit, and also Chair County First Ladies Association. So now, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like us to go into a panel discussion. And I don't know whether we can have somebody to help us arrange these chairs nicely so that they can be aligned well for a panel discussion. I feel there is a zigzag motion ongoing right here. If I can get some help, somebody with two hands and some energy, just make sure there is a nice curve right there. Yes. In the spirit of gender justice, we should have had a lady also join this gentleman, but that is a story for another day. Then the last one, just give it a curve. Asante sana. Now, I'd like to call onto our panel this morning, and it's quite heavy because we are discussing and unpacking this theme of how gender justice can advance climate resilience and zero hunger. All the way from UN Women, East and Southern Africa, she is the gender communication specialist at UN Women. Please help me welcome Sylvia Maina as she comes on stage. Pigeni Sylvia Makofi, where is she? Sylvia Maina, until she arrives, is she around? Sylvia Maina, all right. She's not here, so it's becoming a major issue. Sylvia Maina, all right. Thank you very much. Our next panelist, I'd like to invite on board, even as we wait for Sylvia, is the Deputy Director, Legal Affairs at the National Lands Commission, Caroline Hasoa. Pigeni makofi akikuja. Do we have Caroline with us? Karibu sana Caroline. You can just come on the stage, sit on the beautiful seats that we have right there. And also as part of our panel this morning, we have the Program Manager of Resilient Livelihoods and Climate Change Division, and also lead expert on matters climate smart agriculture, its role in food and nutrition, and at the FAO, that is the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations. Please help me welcome Dr. Barack Okoba. Pigeni makofi akikuja tafadhali. Come on, appreciate him. Daktari, sit next to her so that at least she has company right there. All right, thank you very much. Caroline, I like where you've seated. Very, very strategic. And then we have the Director, Food Crop Research Center, Kabete. This is at the Kenya Agriculture and Livestock Research, KALRO. Help me welcome Dr. Michael Okoti. Pigeni Daktari makofi. Come on, until he reaches. That is a direct translation this side, so that you're close to Caroline. If we go there, there is no balance. Okay? Okay. So, you know, reason why this arrangement is quite interesting. Most of the times, the ladies are out and we are talking about gender justice. Do you think it's just for the ladies to be seated in the call like that? It's not fair. All right? So at this particular moment, let me give you a microphone. There you go. Everyone has a microphone there. you can just make sure that your microphone is nicely tested. Is it on? You can long press it. Do you have our microphones on? All right, thank you very much. That is coming up. Okay, so the report has been released. It's gonna be unmuted shortly. Asante sana. I'm gonna be coming to you, by the way, for questions, okay? So pay attention. If you have any questions, we'll open up the discussion later on. But right now, on to this particular report. And it's quite interesting that we are looking at a nexus between gender and climate change. And sometimes some people find it difficult to connect some of these different elements that we've handled independently since a long time. So this one will go to Sylvia, since you're from UN Women. You guys have all the statistics of where women are. But bring us to date. When you talk about climate change impact on women, how dire is this particular issue? How an urgency is it as we speak right now in Kenya and Sub-Saharan Africa?
Great, thanks for that question. I hope you can all hear me well. So as mentioned, I'm Sylvia Maina from UN Women, the Eastern Southern Africa Regional Office. I manage communications for gender statistics. So not a statistician, but I help the statisticians to communicate what they want to say. So essentially, I think with regard to where are women as far as climate change goes and how does that nexus really fit in, this is something that we've tried to really study because it's a growing area. Gender data, to begin with, is a growing area. Even statisticians are often not very familiar with the ins and outs of gender data. But in 2022, the International Women's Day actually, so it's very timely we're having this now, the theme was actually women and the environment, right? So we did quite a bit of work there and we collaborated with our colleagues UNEP to just kind of try and understand where gender and women come in together. But I think one of the things that I would really like to emphasize, first of all, is that there's no way of progressing sustainably in food security, livelihoods, productivity, if we don't have a wholesome approach. And this means including all of society. We've had data here today, which really makes me happy because for me, my work is heavily hinged on data and evidence to inform policies and decisions. And that's basically to give us evidence-based and gender-responsive policies and decisions and programs as well. And so hearing how the data of women, the number of women who are responsible for productivity in Kenya and even in the region, and I think continentally we acknowledge that women bear the brunt of farm work but reap very little of the benefits. We've had stories about the land ownership, even access to that land, but I also want to add issues to do with access to farming technology, access to inputs. Where do those inputs go? So when you start analyzing it from that perspective of who has the power, because really gender studies are all about power dynamics and who is doing what, who has agency. We also talked about earlier this morning about how women are the ones producing on the farms, but they don't have a say in very many things. And yet when it comes to nutrition, you find families rely on the wisdom and the nurturing of the woman to ensure that nutrition is up to date. So you find there's a very big disconnect if we're doing anything to do with climate change, environment, and resilience, and yet not involving women as they should be, because they're very big stakeholders in that particular sector.
All right, and I'm glad you've brought out that point of power. It's always about power. In fact, somebody said that politics is the science of distributing resources. And people use that to get into power, to be able to influence how the resources are distributed. And in our country, land seems to be a powerful thing. So when you are disenfranchised from land ownership, it becomes actually foundationally very weak for you as that particular party. And this brings me to you, Caroline. Because Kenya is very good on paper. So talk to me about that contrast. Are we good on paper when it comes to our women and land ownership vis-a-vis, as young people will say, kwa ground? Kwa ground vitu ni different, or are we making improvements to make sure that land rights and gender parity and equity is observed in the country, and where are we in that status?
Thank you very much. I'm Caroline from the National Land Commission, Deputy Director, here to represent our CEO. Now, to the question, the National Land Commission is definitely at the pivot, because at the eve of the new constitution, Kenyans spoke in one voice, and they said, we want a paradigm shift in the way we manage our land resources. Now, at the Commission, just to be able to address how weakness in decision-making affects land rights, and what the Commission can be able to show the linkage on what is happening, could change vitu kwa ground na paper ni different. Now, the Commission, in its effort to change vitu kwa ground, has various projects. One of them is monitoring land rights. Another one which Kenyans know very much is compulsory acquisition. Another one which Kenyans know very much is inquiries to actually recover land that was illegally allocated. And I think that is a power that Kenyans gave the Commission, and the Commission has been using it effectively. After 5 years, the law actually put a cap, and I think if you have been following, mostly there was a lot of recovery between 2017 and 2019, but the law was capped. Right now, the Commission is focusing on investigation and recommendations. Now, you'll ask, how does that affect women? When the Commission monitors land rights, it means that when it is dealing with allocation of land, it wants to know how many women are actually applying. When it's dealing with the community land, it wants to know how many women are in the decision making in the committees. When it's making its tools for inquiry and investigation, and just hearing disputes and dealing with compulsory acquisition, it's giving the voice to the women. Therefore, we are not where we need to be, but definitely we understand the roadmap.
Definitely. I hope we are not 130 years away from achieving some of these goals when it comes to gender and land rights. But I want to bring in Dr. Barak Okoba from FAO. I know you lead that wing of climate smart agriculture. And when you talk about taking our production next level and becoming food secure, we have to utilize the tools that we've been blessed when it comes to technology and whatnot. Now, bringing in gender, women are actually the primary producers working in these particular farms, as much as they're disenfranchised when it comes to ownership and decision making. Do you think this is one of those areas where it is hindering, even when you talk about advances in our agricultural system, this contrast, sort of our producers, at the same time, they're not in decision-making positions at that particular level? Do you think is a contributing factor to food insecurity and global hunger?
Yes, you are correct in your assumption that inequality, especially in gender, is definitely going to lead food crisis, and it is based on the data, and the numbers don't lie. I think what has been presented speaks to our behavior. And when we talk of climate change or resilience livelihood, climate change, we may not do much to change. As he says, climate has changed. But when we build people's livelihood around how to be resilient. Resilient means just bouncing back to after a shock. So, and that's where now you find opportunity in climate smart agriculture practices and technologies. I want to tell you that FAO is in a community of other UN agencies in every country. And in every country, all the UN agencies develop a strategy which we call United Nations Sustainable Development Cooperation Framework. One red line that runs through that framework is called LNOB, leaving no one behind. And the initiatives that all UN agencies must do must put in that LNOB. And who are the leaving no one behind? The women, the girls, the youth, people living in ASAL, and also informal urban areas. So it is purposed that anything we are going to do as UN agency supporting the country must follow that framework. And that framework lasts the length of the political government. So the current UNSDCF will last until the end of this government. So it is synchronized to the initiatives of the government. For that reason, the better. We call them bottom-up approach. So we must guide the country that the LNOB must be addressed in all initiatives. So while climate change may not change, we need to adapt to it. So climate smart agriculture becomes an opportunity where the producers of our food, every one of you who has taken breakfast today, out of the 100 hands that made sure that that food is on the table today, 99.9 are women. And most, unfortunately, children. Therefore, we cannot be thinking of being food secure without addressing the issues of women. And climate smart agriculture has many practices that will make sure that the producer gets profit, increases productivity, and also profit. The producer adapts to climate change. The producer mitigates greenhouse gas emission, which are worsening the situation that we are handling today. So as the UN agencies, that is purposeful.
All right.
And we must make sure as FAO in our strategic framework, we have what we call 4 betters.
Okay.
We must produce better nutrition, better life, better environment, again, leaving no one behind. So climate smart agriculture, if you so wish, there are many successful examples where women have been facilitated and supported. Right. I like the Hassan's presentation where there's a strong correlation between climate risk and inequalities.
Okay.
FAO and UN Women, we did a study for 4 years, and we focused on ASAL countries. Okay. And we tried to remove some of those barriers without going into the list.
Okay.
And we realized that if you address inequalities, because risk is there, the climate risk is there, women will no longer be disenfranchised.
Definitely.
Yes.
That's very important. You've raised that, Dr. At this particular moment, our KTN audience, we would like to say bye-bye to them for now, but we are still streaming on our digital platforms. But thank you very much for joining with us over the past 2 hours in this beautiful launch and unveil and a call to action when it comes to 2024 Global Hunger Index. We're focusing on how gender justice can advance climate resilience and zero hunger. And we've said that going at the pace that we're going right now, it will take us 130 years to achieve the goal of zero hunger. We can do better. There are loopholes that we can fill at an individual level where you are, but also us all as a community. But thank you very much for being with us in this particular broadcast and launch. We appreciate you. My name is Noah Kipkemboi, and bye-bye for now. But we continue this discussion on our social platforms, and I want to bring in Dr.